Excerpt from the Sangitya or Chronicle of the Councils, by Vimaladhamma. Many millions and hundreds of thousands of millions of years ago, our teacher was a Brahmin boy named Sumedha in the city of Amaravati. He reached perfection in every branch of knowledge. After his mother and father died, he gave away their wealth in the amount of many tens of millions and went forth as an ascetic. Living in the Himalayas, he learned how to produce meditative absorption and higher powers as well as other special abilities. Traveling through the air one day, he saw a road being cleared to allow Dipamkara Buddha to come to the city of Amaravati from the Sudassana monastery. Sumedha himself set to work on a section of the road with the thought, "I will clean it." When the teacher approached before he had finished, he made his body into a bridge, spread his garment of black antelope skin in the mud, and lying down, said, "May the teacher, together with his community of disciples, not step in the mud, but go, stepping on me." When the teacher saw him, he explained, "This is one who will be a Buddha. In the future, after 4 incalculable eons together with 100,000 eons, he will be the Buddha named Gautama." He received the same prediction in the presence of a succession of 23 Buddhas after that teacher, each of whom, when born, illuminated the world. He received it first from Kondanya, then Sumangala, Sumana, Revata, Sobita, Anomadasi, Paduma, Narada, Padumutara, Sumedha, Sujata, Piyadasi, Attadasi, Dhammadasi, Siddhartha, Tisa, Fusa, Vipassi, Sikhi, Vesabu, Kakusanda, Konagamana, and finally from Kassapa. He also fulfilled the 30 perfections, that is, the 10 perfections, the 10 minor perfections, and the 10 superior perfections. When he was Vesantara, he gave great offerings of gifts 7 times, each one accompanied by such signs as earthquakes. And he also gave away both his wife and children. At the end of that life, he was born in the heavenly city of Tushita, and lived there for as long as a life lasts in that heaven. The gods of the 10,000 worlds gathered together and begged him to become a Buddha. "Time is passing, O great hero. Be born in your mother's womb, to help the gods and all the rest discover the thing without death." Hearing that, he considered the 5 great portents, and seeing each, he said, "Tathagatas are born after they consider and know these 5 things: the time, the country, the continent, the family, and the mother." Then, having descended from there, he was first conceived and then born in the royal family of the Sakyans, where he was delighted by its great wealth. In due course he enjoyed a happy youth, experiencing such royal splendor in 3 palaces appropriate for each of the 3 seasons that it was comparable to the splendor of heaven. At the time of going for amusement in his gardens, he saw in sequence 3 divine messengers, namely, an old person, a sick person, and a dead person. And shocked as he was, he turned back each time. On a 4th occasion, he saw one who had renounced the world, and having the thought, "Renunciation is good," he developed the intent to go forth into the life of an ascetic. He went to the garden and then spent the day there, sitting on the bank of the royal pond where he was adorned by the god Visukama, who came disguised as a barber. He then heard the message that his son Rahula had been born, and knowing the force of a parent's love for a child, he thought, "This is a tie that binds, and I will cut it indeed." In the evening he returned to the city, and when Kisa Gotami saw him, she praised him, saying this verse: "This is the kind of man whose mother must be happy, whose father must be happy, whose wife must be happy." Hearing this verse spoken by his cousin Kisa Gotami, he thought, "Surely she is teaching about the place of peace," and he took off a pearl necklace from his neck and sent it to her. She entered his dwelling, and while he sat on the royal bed, he watched the bodily changes in the sleeping dancers. His heart was disgusted, and he woke Channa and had Kantaka fetched. He mounted Kantaka, and together with Channa, and surrounded by the gods of the 10,000 worlds, he went forth, making the great renunciation, and became an ascetic on the banks of the Anoma River. In the course of time, he went to the city Rajagaha, and there begged for alms. Once, sitting on the slope of Pandava mountain, he was invited to become king by the king of Magadha. He refused that, but he gave the king the promise that once he had attained omniscience, he would visit his kingdom. He then approached Alara and Udaka, but with them he did not teach the highest to be attained. He then engaged in great exertions for 6 years. Very early on the day of the full moon in the month of Visakha, he enjoyed a meal of rice boiled in milk given by Sujata and caused his golden bowl to float on the Neranjara river. He passed the time throughout the day in various stages of meditation, while in the Mahavana grove on the other shore of the Neranjara river. In the evening he received the grass given by Sotiya, and his qualities were praised by the Naga king named Kala. He ascended to the place of awakening, scattered the grass, and made the vow that, "I will not rise from this posture as long as my mind is not freed from the cankers without any remainder." He sat facing east, and when the sun was measured in 8 parts, he had already conquered Mara's army. In the first watch of the night, he gained the remembrance of his former existences. In the middle watch, he gained knowledge of the disappearance and reappearance of beings. At the end of the last watch of the night, he acquired knowledge of the various modes of the conditions of existence. At the time of sunrise, he attained omniscience and was adorned with all the qualities of a Buddha. Having thus become awakened, for 7 weeks he remained at the place of awakening. In the 8th week, while sitting at the foot of the Ajapala banyan tree, he became torpid, and because of examining the depth of the Dhamma. Before he agreed to teach the Dhamma, as requested by Sahampati Brahma, king of the gods, with his retinue of 10,000 Mahabrahmas, he examined the world with the eye of a Buddha, and then consented to the god's plea. Thinking, "To whom will I teach Dhamma first?" he examined the world, and realizing that Alara and Udaka had died, he remembered the many services of the monks of the group of 5. He rose from his seat, and going to the city of Kasika, he spoke with the Ajivaka ascetic Upaka while on the way. On the full moon day of the month of Asalha, he reached the place of residence of the monks of the group of 5 in the deer park at Isipatana. After being addressed with improper behavior, he corrected them, and then set in motion the wheel of the Dhamma, making the 18 kotis, or 10 millions, of Brahmas, and above all the ascetic Anya Kondanya, drink the ambrosia of the deathless. After the excellent wheel of the Dhamma was set in motion, on the 5th day of the fortnight, he helped all of those monks to attain enlightenment. On that same day, he saw that Yasa, a boy of good family, had the good fortune of being certain to attain enlightenment. When Yasa, turning away from that in the night, had left his house, he called him, saying, "Come, Yasa, to being homeless," and made him attain the fruit of being a stream winner that night. On the next day he made him become an arahant. Afterwards he ordained his other 54 friends with the ehi or come monk, formula of ordination, and made them become enlightened. Thus in the world 61 arahants had arisen. Having come to the end of the rainy season, the teacher sent forth the 60 monks, saying, "Wander about, O monks." He himself began going to Uruvela, and while on the way he instructed the 30 young men of the happy group in the Kapasika Grove. All of the least of these became stream winners, while the best became never-returners. All of these were ordained with the ehi formula and sent out to all directions. When he himself had gone to Uruvela, he displayed 3,500 miracles, and instructed the 3 brother ascetics, Uruvela Kasapa and the others, along with their retinue of 1,000 ascetics. He ordained them by inviting them to become monks, and making them sit at Gayasisa, he taught them the fire sermon and helped them to become enlightened. Then thinking, "I will keep my promise given to King Bimbasara," he went to the Lativana garden, which was near the city of Rajagaha. Hearing that the teacher had come, the king came, together with 12 myriads of Brahmins and householders. The Buddha preached a sweet sermon, and the king along with 11 myriads were established in the fruit of a stream winner, and 1 myriad was established in taking refuge in the Buddha, his teaching, and his monastic order. The next day his qualities were praised by Sakka, king of the gods, who had taken the form of a young man. The Buddha then entered the city of Rajagaha, and after the meal given in the palace, he accepted the Veluvana park and began to live there. Sitting at the first place of enlightenment, the Lord of the world examined the establishment of his teaching in the middle and neighboring regions with his omniscient knowledge. He saw it along with exact times and places in the middle regions of Jambudipa, beginning with Varanasi, and in the neighboring regions beginning with Lanka. He thought, "There will be the establishment of my teaching in many places." With respect to this, the teachers of old said, while he lived at the place of awakening, whether absorbed in his attainments or in between enjoying his attainments, the Lord was completing the last of a Buddha's duties, with the establishment of his teachings. Thus for 7 weeks he who is best passed the time there at the place of awakening. Moreover, the Lord Buddha, reflecting on all of a Buddha's duties and on the establishment of his teachings in various regions, did not dwell in one place. He went to various regions, and the excellent wheel of the Dhamma was set in motion. He established gods and humans in the paths and their fruits. He set out monks for the sake of establishing the Buddha's teachings in various regions. He lived in various parks, such as Veluvana and Jetavana, in places beginning with Rajagaha and Savatthi, teaching the most excellent Dhamma, bringing benefit and happiness to beings. His life was 80 years long, with the time of his enlightenment to when he made his final nibbana being 45 years. With respect to this, the teachers of old said, "Thus the Lord saw at that moment. Now 95 years have passed now 45 years have passed for me, while I lie on the bed of final enlightenment, in between the 2 sala trees. There will be humans living in Lanka then, and the elder Mahakasapa will hold the first council, a recitation with 500 monks." To repeat the story, the teacher, while living for 45 years from the time of his enlightenment, rescued a total of 24 incalculables together with 9 kotis and 100,000 beings from the ocean of samsara, and established them on the shore, that is, Nibbana. The Lord taught 84,000 units of Dhamma in that period of time that had passed, bringing beings out of the wilderness. He then thought, I will not live much longer, but will attain final Nibbana. The body of each Buddha who lives a long time becomes one solid mass like a piece of gold. My teachings are not yet widespread in all places. Therefore, after my final Nibbana, people will take my relics, as small as a mustard seed, and making shrines in their own communities will worship, and heaven will be their end. He thus finished all the duties of a Buddha. While lying on the bed of final enlightenment in between the twin Sala trees in the Sala Grove in the city of Kusinara, he instructed the ascetic Subhadda in the first watch of the night and established him in the fruit of being an enlightened person. In the middle watch, he preached to the gods of the 10,000 world systems. In the first part of the last watch, he addressed his last words to the community of monks led by the elder Anuruddha. O monks, I exhort you, compounded things decay and pass away. You should strive with diligence. In this last watch of the night, at the time near dawn on the full moon day of the month of Visakha, when the moon was in the house of Visakha, he attained the first jhana, and then in order up to the jhana of neither perception nor non-perception, he then attained the state of cessation. Then he attained each of the jhanas again down to the first jhana, and then and there he attained the realm of Nibbana without remainder. Then the Lord was honored by gods and humans for a week, beginning from the day he attained final Nibbana, still between the twin Sala trees. Then his beautiful body was cremated for 7 days, and then what remained was in a public hall for 7 days. Thus, when 21 days had gone by after the death of the Blessed One, Lord of the world, the venerable Mahakassapa was the elder of the community of 700,000 monks who had come together. About this, it is said in the Mahavamsa, leading monks were among those 700,000, and the elder Mahakassapa was at that time the elder of the community, having performed the duties to the bodily relics of the teacher. 7 days after the death of the Blessed One, Lord of the world, Mahakassapa remembered the speech that was said by Subhadda, who had become a monk in old age. Surely, friends, do not grieve, do not lament. It's good riddance for us. We were annoyed by that great ascetic, who told us what is proper and what is not proper. Now we can do what we wish to do, and not what we don't wish to do. Mahakassapa then thought, this setting which now exists is one where evil monks think this word is from a teacher who has passed away, and when they get followers, the true Dhamma may disappear quickly. As long as the Dhamma and Vinaya exist, there will be the word of a teacher who has not passed away. Since the Blessed One said, O Ananda, the Dhamma and the Vinaya that I have taught and made known to you will be your teacher after my death. What if I should recite the Dhamma and the Vinaya so that this sasana teaching will last for a long time and be perpetual? Then the elder said, let us, friends, recite the Dhamma and the Vinaya. Formerly, what is contrary to the Dhamma shined and Dhamma was disregarded. Formerly, what is contrary to Vinaya shined and Vinaya was disregarded. Formerly, those who held views contrary to Dhamma were powerful, and those who professed the Dhamma were weak. Formerly, those who held views contrary to the Vinaya were strong, and those who professed Vinaya were weak. The monk said, in that case, sir, may you pick elder monks. The elder rejected many hundreds and many thousands of monks who were ordinary monks, stream winners, once returners, non-returners, and dry-visioned enlightened ones, all of whom were versed in the entire ninefold learning of the sasana of the teacher. And he chose 499 enlightened monks who were well versed in the analytic insights, who had great powers, who usually had been said by the Blessed One to be the best in the separate areas such as the three knowledges. Why did the elder make the number incomplete by one? For the purpose of making space for the venerable elder Ananda, since it was not possible to hold the council without him. Then the venerable Mahakassapa chose the venerable one with the enlightened ones. There were thus 500 venerable ones who were chosen with the agreement of the monks. Later, the venerable elder Ananda attained the analytic insights and became an enlightened one. Then the elder Mahakassapa and the elder Anuruddha, taking the entire order of monks, went to Rajagaha. At that time, there were 18 great monasteries in Rajagaha, and all of them had become houses in a state of nature, and were filled with refuse, because when the Blessed One died, all the monks there had taken their own robes and bowls and went away, abandoning the monasteries and cells. The elders, when they arrived there, thought, "For the first month we will make repairs on the broken and shattered units of Dhamma, for the purpose of honoring the Blessed One and for the purpose of avoiding the criticism of the heretics." Then this occurred to the elder monks. "Friends, the repairs of broken and shattered units of Dhamma has been praised by the Blessed One. Now let us for the first month, friends, make repairs on the broken and shattered units, and in the middle month, after assembling, we will recite the Dhamma and the Vinaya. With respect to this, it is said in the Mahavamsa, in the bright half of the month of Asalha, desiring that the good might long endure, they went to Rajagaha, which had the 4 requisites. There they stayed for the rainy season, these elders, beginning with Mahakassapa, endowed with steadfast virtues, and knew the path of the Buddha. In the first month of the rains, having made repairs on all the beds and seats, they told Ajatasattu about this. Then the king made an excellent pavilion on a jeweled spot of ground at the entrance to the Satapana cave, which is on the slope of the Vebara mountain to the east of Rajagaha, and he dedicated it to the elders. About this it is said in the Mahavamsa, an elder's seat was properly prepared for the elder right there in the middle of that pavilion. A high preaching seat worthy of the Buddha was properly prepared facing east. The king informed the monks, "My work is finished." This is what is said about that council. It was held on the full moon day of the month of Bhadapada during the rainy season, 4 months after the death of the Lord, which occurred on the day of the festival of the full moon in the month of Visakha. On the second day, after the duties were done, the elder monks arranged their robes and bowls and gathered in the Dhamma assembly made by King Ajatasattu. When the community of monks was all seated together, the elder Mahakassapa addressed the monks. "Friends, will we recite the Dhamma or Vinaya first?" The monk said, "Mahakassapa, sir, the Vinaya is the life of the Sasana of the Buddha. When the Vinaya exists, the Sasana exists. Therefore we will first recite Vinaya." "Who should have the responsibility for the Vinaya being recited?" "The venerable elder Upali should have the responsibility," they said. Mahakassapa himself agreed to do the questioning about the Vinaya, and the elder Upali agreed to answer about the Vinaya. The venerable Upali, rising from his seat and putting his upper robe over one shoulder, paid respect to the elder monks. He sat on the preacher's seat, holding a fan with an ivory inlaid handle. Then the venerable Mahakassapa, seated on the elder's seat, asked the venerable Upali about Vinaya. Thus the teachers of old said. And the elder Mahakassapa himself agreed to ask about the Vinaya, and the elder Upali agreed to answer. Among them, the Parajika section, next to the Pachitiya, the Vibhanga for bhikkhunis, then the Mahavaga, the Chulavaga, and the Parivara were considered to be the Vinaya Pitaka. They are called the Vinaya Pitaka. Then the venerable elder Upali laid down the fan with the ivory inlaid handle and descended from the preacher's seat. He paid respect to the older monks and sat in the seat assigned to him. Then the venerable elder Mahakassapa agreed to ask about Dhamma, and the elder Ananda agreed to answer about Dhamma. The elder Ananda sat in the preacher's seat and took the fan with the ivory inlaid handle. Ananda said, "Thus have I learned." Thus the teachers of old said. The 34 suttas, which are grouped in 3 sections, are the Digha and come first in the natural sequence. The 152 suttas, which are taken in 15 sections, these are the Majjhima Nikaya. The 7,762 suttas are the Samyutta Nikaya, and the 9,557 numbered suttas are the Anguttara. The Khuddaka Nikaya is considered as divided into 15 books. The Khuddakapato, Dhammapada, Udana, Itivutako, Sutanipada, Vimana, and Petavatu, and next the Thera and Therigatas, the Jataka, the Nidesa, the Patisambhida, the Apadana, the Buddhavamsa, and the Chariyapitaka. This is the Sutta Pitaka by name, divided into 5 collections. The Dhamma Sangani and the Vibhanga and the Dhatukata come next. Then the Pugalapanyati and the Katavatupakarana, the Yamaka and the Mahapatana. These are the 7 divisions of the basket called the Abhidhamma, which was taught by the fully enlightened one. This is what is called the Abhidhamma Pitaka. Thus, the council members said, "I have learned 82,000 from the Buddha and 2,000 from the monks, but all 84,000 units of the Dhamma are beneficial." Kassapa asked about Vinaya, and Upali answered, and Kassapa asked about Dhamma, and Ananda answered. Thus the first council was finished in 7 months.